as a child. Those vaccines protected you from dangerous diseases. You may even trust vaccines overall. But jumping in line to get one of the COVID-19 vaccines? You think you might wait. After all, how could they have tested it thoroughly in so short a time? No vaccine has ever been approved for widespread use so quickly. Well, it's true that as time goes on, more and more people will get the vaccine and will essentially act as additional testers of vaccine safety. But do you realize how well tested and safe vaccines are before they're released? In most countries, even if the process may seem hurried, COVID-19 vaccines are going through all of the testing phases they would be normally before being approved. Even though some vaccine scientists had special allowances to move forward before that, in most countries they've refused to do so before the final major phase of testing is completed for each vaccine that gains approval. So what exactly are those phases? And how many people were these vaccines tested on before they were approved? Let's take a look. Before vaccines are ever tested on humans, they're tested in the lab using cells. If they activate immune cells and don't harm the cells, then they can be tested on animals, like mice and monkeys. During this preclinical stage, some ingredients may be added that make the vaccine work better. Once researchers have a vaccine that has passed these preclinical tests, they can start testing the vaccine candidate on people. First, they start small, in phase 1 clinical trials, with a group of about 20 to 80 people who have agreed to test the vaccine. Smaller test groups may get different doses of the vaccine to see if different amounts might work better. In clinical trials, some of the people get the vaccine and the others get a treatment that won't activate their immune systems, like saltwater or saline. This is called a placebo. If phase 1 goes well, a larger group of people are tested, usually several hundred, to make sure the vaccine is safe in a more diverse group. These are phase 2 trials. Different doses and timing of booster shots may also be tested in these trials. If phase 2 goes well, an even larger group of people are tested, with thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people in phase 3 trials. These tests make sure the vaccine works well and that it is safe for an even more diverse group than in phase 2. If phase 3 goes well, the vaccine may be approved for widespread use. Phase 3 trials also give researchers the chance to measure the efficacy of a vaccine. Efficacy, which is a word used a lot when talking about clinical trials, is the ability to produce a result that you want. In the case of a vaccine, efficacy is measured through a comparison of how many people get sick in each test group, whether they receive the vaccine or the placebo. For example, in phase 3 clinical trials of the Moderna mRNA vaccine for COVID-19, of 30,000 people, 196 had symptomatic confirmed cases of COVID-19. Of those people, 185, or about 94%, were in the group that had received the placebo. Of the people who received the vaccine, only 11, or about 6%, had confirmed COVID. This means the vaccine is 94% efficacious. Health issues were also not increased among the 15,000 or so people who received the vaccine, showing that it's a safe preventative treatment. The very similar Pfizer mRNA vaccine was tested in over 43,000 different people. Again, the efficacy was high, 95%, and concerning health issues were increased among the over 21,000 people who received that vaccine. To see how effective they are in the real world and in protecting asymptomatic people, all the vaccines will continue to be studied as they're distributed. These ongoing studies are sometimes referred to as phase 4 clinical trials. For example, in phase 4, we've seen that a small portion of the population, about 1 in 100,000 vaccinated people, have severe allergic reactions to the mRNA vaccines. For this reason, it's recommended that people who are allergic to any of the vaccine ingredients do not get vaccinated with that type of vaccine. If someone has a severe reaction to the first dose of the vaccine, they should not receive the second dose. Even after approval, vaccines are constantly being studied to make sure they are effective and safe. It's also important to keep in mind that scientists and doctors have been working together to develop vaccines since the late 1700s. The basis for the science isn't new by any means. We've been experimenting, honing, and refining vaccine science for hundreds of years. Vaccines are a generally safe way to help your body prepare to fight COVID-19, but we shouldn't rely on them alone. Current vaccines are close to 100% effective at preventing severe symptoms of COVID-19, but a few things are still unclear. We don't know yet if they're not sick themselves. It's possible the vaccine may prevent disease, but not stop the virus from infecting the body.
It's easy to tweak them to respond to fast-changing pathogens. When the highly mutated Omicron variant hit the scene in late 2021, it seemed like it was time for them to really finally start fulfilling that promise. Manufacturers announced that they could adjust and shift vaccine production by March, but that promised delivery date passed months ago, and we're still waiting for Omicron-specific boosters. So what's taking so long? Well, it's complicated, and the experts that I read say that there are several issues, but really the central one seems to be that clinical trials with Omicron-specific mRNA vaccines so far have returned kind of a mixed bag of results. Omicron-specific vaccines did do better against Omicron than older ones did, but not really significantly better. And if they're not significantly better, then it'll be a lot harder to convince people that they need an Omicron booster. And if people aren't convinced that they really need them, then they just won't get them, which of course lowers the pharmaceutical company's incentive to produce them. Moderna now wants to provide what's called a bivalent booster this fall, which is a mix of its old vaccine against the original virus and a new Omicron-specific one. Pfizer and BioNTech also just announced results with an Omicron update vaccine that look quite positive, but healthcare authorities are still looking at all that data. This issue really boils down to how healthcare authorities define the goals of vaccination. Are they to prevent infection completely, but maybe only for a short time? Or are they to build up more long-term protection, but only against serious disease or hospitalization or death? Because so far, at least, existing vaccines appear to still be doing that quite well against Omicron too. Greenlighting an Omicron-specific vaccine that just incrementally improves on that is not going to be enough to set off new mass vaccination drives.